Hello
Hi,
again.
hi, Sanjana.
So glad that we could get back to chatting because from our last conversation, I've had so many, ideas and thoughts about what you said, so many insightful points that I had some more questions that I had to
Lovely.
ask you.
More than
so I
happy to. So go ahead.
So I think we spoke a lot about how pivotal the role of leaders is in any organization. So what, according to you, what constitutes this term leadership, and what does that mean, and sort of what are the pillars of leadership in the current decade? Because you work with so many of them, so you've had insights. Would love to hear more about that.
Right. I think it's a very profound question because it's evolving all the time. It's a fast changing environment. There are so many opportunities and so many challenges. And I think each of these are significant opportunities to be able to find yourself, find new meaning, find strengths, find areas that still require some thinking. So I think these are incredible times for those who are prone to reflection and would like to use experiences to be able to sort of process new ideas, process new interactions, to be able to constantly make meaning. I think these are wonderful times to make meaning, especially for people who are in positions of impact and leadership. So, to answer your question in terms of what really changed in the pandemic, I said
Yeah.
it was a live classroom the last time when we met. And when I
Yes.
said it was a live classroom, what I really meant was that we just constantly in this environment where things are changing so rapidly that it is compelling us to to be able to, like I said, go back to the drawing board to ask ourselves some really hard questions. uh, I think that there have been so many changes to the employer employee dynamics in the interim. I think those have changed so dramatically in the current times. Uh, and I think they're interesting because they require people who have power to be able to go back, to, like I said, to new thinking, to reassessing, to questioning assumptions, to be able to articulate new insights from those experiences.
Yeah.
Uh, for example, I think that organizations were very quick in declaring that their work from home was working out really beautifully. So, this whole business of remote working, I know of organizations who didn't get a sign off on remote working for years, and there were all kinds of reasons for why the organization was not prepared for remote working, the nature of work we do. And the information we handle is too sensitive. That there's high risk. There are compliance violations if we allow people to work from home. All kinds of things, which basically, you know how necessity is the mother of invention, and suddenly everybody found a way to be able to work from home. So, work from home or remote working is a convenience. It's a flexibility that is provided, especially for us, it was provided in a crisis situation.
Yeah.
And there is a mechanism of making remote working work. And what I mean by that is that by and large, remote working presumes self directed sort of interest and focus for manifesting performance. And it presumes that, and it cannot be presumed because not everyone is equipped, not everyone is well trained, not everyone is well experienced to just be self directed in terms of being able to deliver performance. And therefore, it had to naturally be a smaller window to be able to kind of sort of drag this on. Also, we basically a collective society. We thrive on human interaction. There
Yes.
is a lot of peer learning that happens when you're in person in an office. There is incredible advantages of being there physically.
Hmm.
It gives you reason to be able to move out every day. It gives you a chance to be able to meet colleagues. It gets you to basically drive yourself to do best what you can do best. Uh, there is so much of conversation. There's so much of learning from seniors. There's so much of learning from peers. Such a huge opportunity to be able to coach and mentor people, to deal with customers, to be able to influence different kind of stakeholders, to be able to work together to bring new projects and ideas together, to be able to work with customers to be able to find new solutions. So just human interaction is very rich and can make you feel like you're really thriving. And so invariably, it's an experience much missed. uh, we're talking right now in a remote kind of context, and I'm sure that the energy we would both experience in this conversation would be very different if we were interacting in person.
Absolutely. Yes, I
you know
agree.
yeah, and so I think that, and there's a natural need we have in collective societies. We love the concept of sabha, which is people are around and we're all together. And that's why you see there is such an attraction to meetings. Meetings we treat as another social get together to be able to come
Hmm.
together. And they're so incredibly attractive. Most people don't want to let go of meetings because they don't want to let go of being able to come together. That same meeting format online kind of takes away a lot of the charm of meeting physically, the kind of energies that you experience together, the kind of fun you can have, in your interactions, in your expressions, in what remains unsaid, in your silences, all of that, which is just lost the minute it is online. And again, a whole lot of other malpractices in the context of not switching on your cameras, uh, not wanting to participate, being kind of low energy, apathetic to what the conversation might really be, many other experiences that you had, because I think people were just tiring of that format
Yeah.
of being able to come together. So I think I brought that up in the context of your question on what constitutes leadership, is to be able to drive home the point that we all went through a crisis together. People experience personal loss and grief during this time, and it's not easy to be able to. I think you're asking yourself some really existential questions through all of this. And yet, there is one eye on the productivity of being able to come together, to be employed, to be able to be contributing, to kind of remain relevant in the context of revenues and other numbers that you might be chasing as an organization. And I think, and yet there's a side of you that's asking yourself some really serious existential questions around the time with family, around the longevity of existence, of health, aging people at home, children going to school from home, all of these confusions that people have really navigated themselves through. These are not ordinary experiences to process. And I think that the required empathy, I think that got kind of stretched over a period of time to say, okay, we understand this and we understand that, but the truth is that there are realities of business, and there are realities of value creation for which a business comes together. So I think this very important strife between human doing and human being, I think everyone experienced that during this time. And the fact that the many who realize that they don't want to be human doing, what I mean, and they don't want to be so much human doing, they want to be a little less human doing, and they want to be more human being. And so it's not been uncommon for a lot of people to be able to walk their own path, pursue music or some other career, or perhaps look at opportunities of being able to be part of the gig economy, that I'll find some way to be able to earn, but I want to be able to do and lead the rest of my wonderful life doing what I like to do best.
Hmm.
So, so I think coming back to, therefore, in these very complex times, what is it that you really require from a leadership? And you talked about the pillars of leadership, sort of within the organization. So it cannot not start with being able to make sure that you have talent on board to achieve the vision and all the dreams that you have for the organization. And there has to be a change in that equation and in the manner in which we are engaging to get productivity from people. And I think that is an area of reflection for individual leaders. I want to be able to, so that is very important. It's the change, it's a big change, and it stared us in the face the last couple of months. I think it's the second part that I'd like to bring forth, and it's not in any sequence of importance, but I think it's again going to be a very integral part of how we lead people, how we lead business, is to make sure that we move away from gizmoism or looking very trendy, and instead focus on what the business really needs, so that we're able to uh, again do best what we can, do best of what it is that we can together, by being able to use technology, for instance, to come closer to our talent and customers, to use innovation by creating environments for innovation, and not just talk about innovation, but to be able to manifest innovation through creative problem solving. It's going to be very, very important. I think social and emotional intelligence remains important through these times. It's very, very important. Your ability to build relationships, your ability to be able to understand the unspoken rules of the game, the ability to be able to bring forth differential and situational leadership in different situations, manage different kinds of stakeholders at these times. I think these are times to manifest that. And emotional intelligence, which is your ability to be able to understand what's going on with people without them having to articulate that. And that's going to bring me to this whole space on everyday leadership, and therefore the need to be able to manifest your leadership every day. It's not something that you do in a town hall. It's not something that you do when you are addressing people. It's something that you manifest every day by being able to bring forth your sensitivity towards how people are feeling, whether you're noticing their body language, whether you're noticing their expressions, whether you're truly committed to the well-being, holistic well-being of people who are actually working with us. Finally, people are coming to work where the pandemic's not yet settled down. It's ebbed off, and therefore there is an opportunity now to be able to work together. But we're still dealing with people who've been through a lot of strife before they've come out on the other side to be able to turn up for in-person working or whatever other formats of working that organizations may want. So some degree of sensitization around that is going to be extremely important. I think domain expertise, your ability to be able to think and be astute around business, identifying opportunities, aligning people around goals, getting people excited about what it is that you're trying to achieve, is going to be extremely important. But I cannot underline an area of work that we very popularly do called humanocracy. And what humanocracy really alludes to is the need to be able to now, finally move away from command and control styles of leadership to be able to create more empowerment in organizations, and to understand that particularly the Gen Z and other generations that are coming into the workforce are all products of the knowledge era and are looking to be able to access experience within organizations to be able to learn and grow. It's very important to take a relook at the styles in which we deal with people down the line, the extent to which we value what they really bring as talent to the organization, and to find ways of being able to create meritocracies, which is to reward people who contribute best. And it's very important for people to want to belong to organizations where they know that their efforts will get recognized, and that the organization is at least striving to become a meritocracy. And that's why I think having these simple adages, speed of problem solving equal to speed of performance, or those who contribute best will get rewarded best, are very important adages to have, and to be able to find mechanisms to uphold that in this new changing environment. But I think a very exciting times for technology enabled solutions, very exciting times to create cultures for innovation, which enable people through empowerment, by being able to enable voice within the organization. Incredible times to be able to support diversity and inclusion. And I mean, by building diverse and inclusive cultures where different kinds of people who already exist, in our society and have incredible differentiated capabilities of contribution, are given an opportunity to be able to come in. I think as you know a business environment, most organizations need to value socio-cognitive diversity much more than they are, which is your ability to bring in perspectives which are different from the industry in which you're hiring. There is too much of hiring the goose for the goose and the gander for the gander, and playing it, low on risk. Actually, I believe most organizations don't want to invest in the delta of training, especially when they induct people. They don't want to groom people or coach people. They instead believe that you can have ready-made people if they're from the same industry. Also speaks volumes for how you yourself believe that you're not differentiated in terms of how you work, your culture, your standards, your quality of your product, how you bring things together, that you believe someone can come in from another industry and start performing from tomorrow. So I think some of these delusions and illusions we have to get over and start becoming, more astute, and bring more gravitas to the whole process of talent. So, in short, I want to recap the piece on leadership that you just asked me, right? I'm going to say that these are times full of opportunities, and therefore people who can bring the value creation journey together by being able to adopt technology and create environments for innovation. Empowerment within the organization is going to be very important, employee voice, and to be able to enable us as organizations to integrate talent from across generations. Uh, I think going to be incredibly important for leadership to be human centric and to be seen as that in all their touch points. So, high sensitization to personal interaction, connections, and to holistic well being.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I want to talk about moral intelligence, which is what you're asking others to do. You've got to be able to uphold that yourself. And last but not the least, invaluable, social and emotional intelligence, which kind of feeds back into, questioning the command and control style and instead creating environments of empowerment and contribution. So I'm going to pause at that. That's been like a longish answer, but because
No, but
this is going to be an evolving space. I'm going to tell you that with every couple of months we're going to have to relook at what really do we value the most. In terms of what do we expect our leaders to be able to bring in. These are going to be very challenging times for people in leadership positions, and I'm not surprised that there's so much of churn across organizations where sometimes very young people have an opportunity to be able to lead the organization. Sometimes organizations have stayed with a mix of people who bring in the value from legacy thinking. And we'll talk a bit about this, I'm hoping, in this conversation today on we're not discarding in the new economy everything that's happened in the past. You know what I mean?
yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of that is invaluable, and it's very important to be able to bring that continuity within the organization. For example, collaboration is timeless. I mean, it's important in all times, and it's going to increasingly become more important. It's taking the shape of collective intelligence, of co-creation, valuing other people's thinking by listening and completing your own thinking with your listening. So, a lot of opportunities to be able to manifest collaboration. But this is basically my answer at this time.
No, thank you, thank you. I think a lot of pertinent points there. But there was something you said that stood out for me, which was, the idea that pre-pandemic, before work from home came about, we had this shared energy and going to work and physically having your workspace and home space. A lot of people are very comfortable with the work from home now, but a lot of people think that now post-pandemic things can go back
Mm,
in the work culture, in the work environment, to how it was before March 2020. So, what is
mm.
your take on that? Is that possible in certain areas, or is that viable also?
Yeah, I think it's very important for people to examine individually why they would want to go back, 3 years ago. And I just said that a lot of things are still relevant.
Yeah.
I think it's important to question why you want to go back to business as usual. And
Hmm.
are you worried about what you've learned in the interim, or do you not know how to manifest what you've learned in the interim? Or is it just very comfortable to do it the way we used to do it before and just to get it over with? So it's important to examine why you want it to be like before, because there's just so much new we learned in the interim. And in the new environment, if you scan it um, in the context of opportunities, it will throw up so many new opportunities for new behaviors, for experimentation, for doing things differently, and so on. So I think the invitation here is that everyone should want to try and be in 2023 and scan the opportunities in 2023, deal with the challenges in 2023. Having said that, I think I have a challenge with organizations wanting to still use benchmarks or thinking from the past. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So, for example, going back to the leadership competencies of 2020 or pre 2020, or going back to some of the processes or practices without using the opportunity to re examine whether these are relevant, whether this even reflects what it is that the organization really needs. For example, I'd be surprised if organizations have not used this opportunity to revisit their leadership competencies, or they've not taken this opportunity to revisit their competency structures, because indeed so much has changed in terms of what you really need from people at these times. And so, how are you actually, therefore, grooming people for the future? Who are you identifying as high potential people within the organization? These questions cannot be sacrificed at the laziness of using old, paradigms or old thinking, or just because you already have a structure or you have a competency framework, just lapse back to using that from the past. I think it's a huge opportunity to be able to reconstruct the future organization, and therefore how future ready can you make the organization as you progress into this future. And it's a wonderful, wonderful future. How are you preparing people to do best what they can do best at this time, so that you don't know what the next curveball is going to be, and you don't want people who are surprised all the time.
Yeah.
So here's the opportunity to be able to say, what did we learn from this huge upheaval that we experienced in the last 2 or 3 years, and how do we want to internalize that in the context of how it is that we now run the show, as an organization. So I think that the answer to that is a mixed bag, in that some of the behaviors, for example, do we want retention? That's timeless. Should we be valuing people and their careers? That's timeless. Do we want collaboration within organizations? That's timeless. But are you using a practice or a program from the past and just rejigging or just bringing it back without even bothering to recast it? I think that's not valuable, and I think that should require rethinking, and everyone must make the effort to internalize all the magnificent insights so many people have had in the last 3 years, to be able to revamp, recast what they bring to organizations